Welcome, heels and villains, to Fjuke Enterprises YouTube channel. As always, I'm your host, Fjuke. This is Conversations with Fjuke, which has turned into interviews. Today I'm continuing my quest to interview all the game masters that will allow me. And I don't know how my guests like to introduce themselves, so I allow them to introduce themselves, which I'll do now.
I am Lief.
So, Lief, how did you get into the role-playing hobby?
Shakespeare in the Park. So I was auditioning for Shakespeare in the Park, my local community. I got the part of one of the little villagers for it was Midnight Summer's Dream. So within Midnight Summer's Dream, there's a play within a play, and essentially it's a bunch of little villagers who are putting on this little play. I was one of the little villagers. One of the other little villagers, he was a D&D DM. He had been running the game since back when it was like chainmail. So he invited me into his group, and I've been playing since.
So, what systems have you played in?
Oh, jeez. Pretty much. Okay. First edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Second edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Third edition Dungeons and Dragons. A little fourth. Didn't like fourth. I've been playing a lot of fifth lately. I have been running classic World of Darkness, or now just World of Darkness, for I think 18 years, maybe 17. I've also played some Rifts. I do like Rifts, but Rifts comes with issues. I played some of the other Palladium games. I played a little bit Pathfinder, Exalted, love Exalted, Iron Age, Iron Kingdoms tabletop RPG. Some of the Morpheus games, so like the latest Star Trek game. Okay, let's see what else. Look at my giant collection. Shadowrun. I've played some Shadowrun. Actually, pretty much only fifth. Cyberpunk. That was cool. And I'm sure there's some others there that I've done like one shots or short little blurps here or there.
How'd you go from being a player to being a GM?
That was a lot of that was like volunteering. It was literally I bought like the core book for Werewolf the Apocalypse. Jeez, was it like second edition or revised? And I said, hey guys, I got this new game. Who wants to play?
Are there any systems out there that you refuse to run?
Yeah, fourth edition D&D. I will not touch that. The one I had played a little bit. Also will not was the new Star Wars from Fantasy Flight or whatever. Oh, I rage quit when I was playing that once. So yeah, no, those two are pretty much, and I guess yeah, the new and Chronicles of Darkness. Those are pretty much the three I won't.
What systems do you enjoy running?
Oh, geez. I really enjoy running 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. It is a really good system. It's friendly to new players and experienced players. It has, of course, every system has its own issues, but it's really open. I really enjoy World of Darkness. I enjoy the freeform nature of it so much because it's not World of Darkness naturally lends itself to sandbox open world games so very well as just small, like, concentrating on your small low city or community, or your little pack, or your cabal, or a cable, or whatever you want to call it, depending on what faction, right? So I enjoy those ones. Some of the Morpheus game, I'm not even pronouncing that correctly, but they've done the Star Trek, they've done the Conan, they've done John Card from Mars. Those ones look fun. I've played them a couple times, but those would look fun. Iron Kingdoms. I've always wanted to run that, but I never actually had a chance to. Rifts is nice if you can get past the clunkiness of the Palladium system. just avoid Heroes Unlimited. Just go on. Just avoid that. Oh, hey, there we go. Survey Sentinels. That's another one I've played.
Do you have any common house rules?
It depends from game to game, right? Like, what do you mean by like common? Like, I guess, Well, we typically do like with D&D. If you roll that natural 20 on a skill check, typically it comes out as a better than even if someone got like a 30, just because you rolled that natural 20, right? Palladium. Anytime we played in the Palladium systems, we kind of had a house rule all that stuff in. In my World Darkness game, since I pretty much do a mixed bag of nuts game, which is hey, here's a vampire, here's a werewolf, here's a mage, here's a changeling. How does that work? That involves a lot of house rules to kind of make them all mesh. But yeah, I don't know. It depends on the game.
Oh, are there any tales of your players completely surprising you that you would like to discuss today?
All the time. Usually it's something along the lines like I introduced like a little MacGuffin that I just introduced as like, hey, here's a cool nifty little thing idea I had, and then they just completely run with it. Sometimes it's things like oh hey, here's the obvious NPC that I want the players to interact with, and then here instead is this little goblin, and then they just focus on the goblin, and it's like, oh, okay, fine, railroad time. I'm gonna railroad you into that adventure. So I'm not going to name names because reputation on the internet and whatnot. But I do have a player. You actually know him because I think you've played with him a few times. But I was running a class of World Darkness, and it's referred to as the Highway of Horror, which is a bit of a long story, so I'll just skip it here. But the high points is essentially the group. Were a group of paranormal investigators, so they were looking at this case and they were looking at multiple points of interest, and so they decided to go to one point. They were traveling across a major highway in an old vintage World War II era German limousine. So again, no anti-lock brakes, just sheer mechanical. It was all 100% authentic. When the player saw something else that caught his attention, and he created a series of events that ended with like I think it was a 300 car pileup on the highway bridge. Half or 3/4 of the party dead. Massive destruction, and with a player essentially sacrificing themselves through use of magic to essentially undo the entire situation. Yeah, and that same player has done that same kind of thing multiple times.
Is it the player with the horrible dice luck?
Yes, it is the player with the horrible dice. That does feed into some of what happens is because he comes with a cool idea. He generally leaps before he looks, and then followed by bad dice rolls. And I'm sure there's lots of other DMs that have that same character that goes like, oh cool, shiny, let's do something with it, or hey cool, let's poke the bear, and then oh those are horrible dice rolls.
Are there any tales of everything going according to plan that you would like to discuss?
Yeah, actually, you know what? It's the same player. So, so the same player, actually, same campaign, but at this point, his previous character died. So he's playing a new character. He was playing a changeling, and he was essentially trying to rescue a family that were plagued by essentially a demonic spirit sort of thing. So he pulled off a last stand situation, and like I always knew that he was going to walk out of this alive, because the group at this point, only half the party showed, and the other half decided, hey, let's still play. So they took on an encounter that was probably scale too high for them, but since they want to do it, hey, let's do it. So he actually successfully pulled off a sacrificial last stand where his companions rescued the family while he held off the darkness, literal darkness. And he did it in a heroic, amazing way where his dice actually started all to click for multiple rounds until finally, he just won, not a bad roll, but not a good roll, and then just kind of got overwhelmed.
The penultimate question is, do you have any advice for your fellow game masters out there?
Yeah, like tailor your adventure to the group. Like some groups are very murder hobo-y. Like there never be anything but murder hobos. So if you're going to try to do like a political campaign, that's just not going to work, right? So you got to tailor your campaign, your game to your player group. So essentially, you got to know your player group. And while some groups do want to essentially evolve as players, like involve their player style, some groups will always just be happy being murder hobos. So as a GM, you kind of got to be like content also that if your group is murder hobos, just be a murder hobo GM. If they want to do political stuff, then then do that political stuff. But tailor your game to your players. So zero session. Zero session is always a really good idea. So essentially, come up with that zero session where what are their players are they going what characters are your players going to play? What kind of game are you thinking? Just so you can get everyone's consensus to what the game's going to be about, and also figure out your boundaries. Because like some players have different boundaries that they're willing to go for different themes and different situations. Yeah, so zero session, yeah.
The final question is, do you have anything that you're a part of or care about that you would like to shout out?
Not really. Actually, yeah, you know what? Role-playing, the positive benefits of social interaction for tabletop RPGs. So, I have certain mental issues. I won't get into depth because, too much information. But playing tabletop RPGs and even GMing them has helped me face some of my inner issues and also deal with some of my stresses and other problems. So there are a lot of social interaction issues like that it helps deal with. So like building the idea of social credit, building those bonds of friendship and trust and commonality. Tabletop roleplay games really help with that. You can kind of do the same thing with like video games, but there is that in-person nature of it that helps a lot more. There's also, you can, with the whole thing with COVID, of course, even online, as long as you can hear the person, does help build those bonds of trust and bonds of commonality. So there are some serious social benefits for actually playing tabletop role-playing games. And so I encourage people to have, whether autistic or, like me, my various issues, or ADHD, or just learning disabilities, or anything, to actually try tabletop role-playing games, because they will help.
I can also attest to that. I hope the people watching this video do all the YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, share the video, and I will see you in the next video.